So, welcome again to everybody. On these Monday webinars, what I love to do is just give everybody a whole bunch of free trade advice. And sometimes I'm really right and sometimes I'm less right. But there's always great setups and we always talk about them. And you could go through webinar after webinar, they're all archived, and look at what we talked about at the beginning of the week versus how the end of the week, or how the week ended. And there's always some great setups that play out very, very well during the week. And we're going to talk about some of those setups. We have some really excellent ones that I'm pretty super excited about. And so I just wanted to, I love traders and I love working with all of you guys. It's really a pleasure. And I just want to make sure that everyone has a little bit of trade advice, a little bit of an edge on the market that can kind of help for whether you're a new trader or a seasoned trader. I've been trading for 13 years, and I always like good trade ideas. Whether they come from me or from another trader, I always love good trade ideas. And so I don't know if there's ever any time where you don't need outside information. So I'm here to provide a little bit of extra resource for all of you new, intermediate, advanced traders, everybody. And I hope you find it useful, and I hope it impacts your trading for the better. Okay, so a couple of things to look at. I hate to have to come back to this right now, but the website is now fully functional. So if anybody has any questions about where things are, let me know. There will be some slight moves around. But the biggest missing link right now is I'm getting my logo finished, and that's a little bit of a project, so that's taking a little bit longer. So I didn't want to kind of put up a half of a website with missing the logo and everything. So I figured I would just leave it at half the website, and then as soon as that logo is done, I'll get the whole front page finished, and it'll look great. But again, everything works well. This is daytradersfx.com. Remember, if you would like to join us for a free trial this week, next week, any week, you can get a free trial by just clicking on this Get Instant Access. That's going to take you to the page that will tell you kind of what you get and how it all works. So I try to keep it simple. There's some great stuff in here. We have 2 subscriber options. One includes recordings of these webinars that we do every single day and trade alerts, and one includes access to the live trade room where a lot of interaction happens, a lot of additional learning happens, and it's just a great place for traders to kind of be part of a community. And so we'd love to have you with us. You can get a free trial of any one of these 2 levels, and we've also got some pretty good savings for annual subscriptions as well. So we'd love to have you stop by. So that's that. Anyways, website's got a little more love that needs to be done to it, but it's in the process. Here is the calendar this week. I've talked about this a little bit, and that is in the U.S., and as I'm sure it is the case in many countries, Thanksgiving is a pretty big holiday for us. Everyone just takes the rest of the weekend off, and people eat like crazy and have fun and go shopping. The day after Thanksgiving, Friday, there's all the Christmas shopping officially starts, and it's just a shopping extravaganza craziness. And so we have that this week here in the U.S. Thanksgiving will be on Thursday, so I will be off Thursday. We won't have any live sessions on Thursday. But we will have this live session today, live sessions on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and then we'll take Thursday off, and probably Friday as well. We usually take Fridays off unless there's non-farm payroll. But there's some great news items this week, and there's some great setups. One thing that I notice happens quite often is on Thanksgiving week in the U.S., when all the U.S. markets are closed, it seems like the currency pairs go nuts. They just move like crazy. So we're going to try to get some pending orders in place for some of that big movement that could happen on Thursday and Friday. Some of that big movement includes the OPEC meeting, which is happening on Thursday, where they're going to discuss a possible reduction in production of oil and to kind of stabilize prices. We've seen a huge drop in oil price. It's down 30% in the last couple of months from the highs. And this is a big meeting, and they tend to do this around this time. Oil prices come down this time of year, not as much as they have right now. And then they they kind of hit these meetings up, and oftentimes on Thanksgiving in the U.S. we get a lot of overseas news, especially from oil-producing countries can have pretty big impacts on the markets during this time. So we're probably going to see some pretty big stuff. Yeah, we're trading on Wednesday. We're going for it. We're jumping in. And welcome, Sabira. Good to have you. So we're going to see some pretty big news on Wednesday. We'll try to have some nice pending orders in place for that, and I've got some great setups I'm looking for. And then as far as news goes the rest of this week, we have a little bit of Bank of Japan stuff coming out today. Tomorrow, some inflation report hearings from the UK. It's always possible to move the market. Retail sales for Canada tomorrow morning. GDP numbers for the US tomorrow morning. Consumer confidence for the U.S. tomorrow morning. Wednesday, we have more GDP numbers for the U.K. Durable goods for the U.S. That's a pretty good mover. New home sales for the U.S. is a good mover. Trade balance for New Zealand, a good mover. And we just kind of, the list continues on there. And then, of course, on Thursday, we have the OPEC meeting. And then Friday, we have a little bit of news, Canadian and CPI numbers for Europe. So we've got a pretty decent news week coming up. So we're going to keep an eye on that. But having said that, here's my list of things I'm looking at. These are my favorite setups this week. Now, euro dollar very likely may or may not give us a setup this week. It may or may not. But as you can see on euro dollar, I'm pretty excited about the 122 and even the 120 level. Pretty good area to keep an eye on. Why do I say that? If we look at long-term charts on euro dollar, we have a pretty nice little price pattern in here. This is a trend line that we've watched for some time, where the euro dollar just kind of continued up and it would hit this this descending trend line and just come down. We saw it happen again this year, ran up and hit that and just tumbled off of that. Well, the euro dollar is obviously in a free fall, and the U.S. is looking pretty good on the recovery side of things. The Federal Reserve is sounding a little tiny bit more on the hawkish side than a lot of other central banks, and so of course that's got the U.S. dollar just stepping on the gas, full steam ahead. But remember, those fundamentals change as we get to extreme technical levels and technical setups. Now, the euro dollar seems to not really be able to move too much below 120, at least over the last going back to 2006, and it took some little dips here, but they were pretty short-lived. We got down to 117 and a couple of times in 2004 and in 2005, and then the rest of the time it's kind of in that high teens or right about the 120 level. This is a really major level for the euro dollar. And we're headed right down into it. We're currently at about 124, just a hair above 12400. And you can see that this little ascending trend line right here that's been tested, it started right here in 2005, got tested again here in 2010, tested again here in 2012, and we're headed for that. We're going to hit that trend line right around 12200, so about another 200 pips. There's going to be some pretty significant support there, and then definitely some significant support at 120. So we're going to be looking for opportunities to buy those dips, on those big dips. We're going to be looking to buy those big dips. Remember, we have an arrow on the 4-hour and the daily time frame. 4-hour and daily time frame. Does anybody here, by the way, not have my indicator or not know what I'm talking about on that arrow? Anyone there have that situation? Let me, if that is the case, I will pull up that screen so that you guys can all I really want to make sure that everybody has that, because that is super duper importante. You can get the free indicator, download and everything, right? Hold on here, I'm just pulling this guy up. Okay, here we are. Again, I want to make sure that everybody has this because it's such a great indicator. This will explain how it works, and how to get it downloaded and so on, and you can get that right here. Download that indicator right there. So that's how we can get that indicator, and this indicator will give us some really good trading ideas for medium, short-term, long-term. Have a look at that and let me know what you guys think there. But it's some really great stuff. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second there, Benny. But this euro dollar is pretty. It's pretty safe to say that we have at least another 200 pips to go before it starts doing too much. Now we also have. We had what I was wondering if it was going to be a falling wedge. It's a bit of a falling wedge, failed to break out, and I was wondering if we were going to get a head and shoulders pattern out of this. This being a shoulder, this being a head, but it looks like we're into a double bottom. It's bounced off that pretty well. But if that breaks, if we break this low, which is about 123.60-ish area, then that's going to be our target. That's going to be kind of the catalyst to get us down into 12200 and even into 120. But what we have right now is euro has bounced off. That's our little double bottom right there. Uh-oh, my charts have frozen. Hold on one second. Let me restart that. Good old Omnovia. So we have this double bottom on the euro dollar around 123.60. And it's bounced off it pretty nicely here. So there's our double bottom. If this can hold a bit, then it's great. I'm not ready to buy euro dollar yet. In fact, on that dip, in that bounce right there, I would like to sell the euro dollar potentially against these highs, but I'd like to see if this can make it up just a little bit more and get some sell positions going against the highs of last week, where we had that kind of failed attempt at reaching the 200 moving average. We're about 170 pips or so off that. I'd like to see it pull up just a little bit more. Otherwise, I'm just going to trade the break of this low. This is just a perfect little double bottom right here, right at about 123.60. If we can get through that, then that's going to be just a fantastic selling opportunity at the break of that double bottom, and that's going to take us. That's where we come back to this guy right here, which is, are we headed to 122? Most likely. What's going to happen beyond 122? Is 120 going to be our big level? Are we going to get to 120? All of that stuff I think is very likely. So anyways, look for a break of that double bottom. We're going to look for some opportunities to sell this little rally. If for some reason 123.60 holds, which is slightly, I don't know, it's possible, then we're going to look for some opportunities to buy against that low, because we've got a little 4-hour arrow that's popping up, but it's pretty low probabilities right now, 18% and so on. So it's going to be all about the price pattern right now, but definitely look for a break of this 123.60. That's going to be a huge one for at least 160 pip trade down into that 12200. Okay, here is any questions on that euro dollar? Let me know. Here's the pound dollar. I'm loving this pound dollar setup, and it's very similar to euro dollar, but it has some key differences here. Are we going to get a break above 157.37? And what is the setup at 157.37? Let's look at this pound dollar right now. Here's the pound dollar. We have, again, we have some low probability arrows right now. The daily chart's at 9%. The 4-hour chart's at 6%. Probabilities are low because we haven't made a huge run. But we have a pretty nice falling wedge right here on pound dollar. We have a nice little, if we zoom this out just a little bit, we have a nice little potential shoulder right there and a possible head right there. If that low can hold, and that low is about 155.90. So if 155.90 holds, then the highs of this little dip right here are 157.37. Likewise, that little resistance level, which was the weekly pivot, would put us outside of this falling wedge. So that break above 157.37 looks super excellent for a minimum move into the first missed daily pivot, which is about 80 pips away. But a pretty average move that I'm looking for is a move into 160. We have a whole bunch of missed pivots clustered up here in 160. And that gives us a nice 300 pip movement, and I'm super excited about that if we break above 157.37. So we're going to be ready for that. We're going to have some pending orders ready. We're looking for a break of 157.37. Now, very much like the euro dollar, if the pound dollar cannot hold 155.90, we're currently 100 pips off 155.90, then we'll sell the break of 155.90 as well, because remember, we still do have some pretty nice dollar rally stuff in the works. We're getting into some consolidation down here, but we've got a missed monthly and daily pivot down here at 154.38 and about 154.95. So those are some nice little missed pivots down there. We could be headed down another 100 plus pips before the pound really makes a turnaround. 155.00 is a pretty strong level on the pound dollar, and that could hold it. That definitely could hold it. If we look at some fib levels on this pound dollar right here, you can see that this pullback has already exceeded the 61.8. It's just kind of gone and gone and gone and gone, and had very little retracement. So this could be the time for retracement, and that would be triggered by the break above 157.37. That's where our retracement is going to come from, is if we get that break of 157.37, and then we can really start trading this pound dollar back up. But again, 155.90 is also our level, and if we get a break of that, then we'll take it. We'll absolutely take it. And we're going to look for some trend lines and some opportunities to get in, potentially short against this 157.37 as well. It's going to depend on some price patterns and some market action, over the next 24 hours or so. But we may be shorting against this high. We'll see how a few things go. We're not to that setup yet. But it's safe to say that we could be looking for a pending order above this high sooner than later. So that's what I'm looking for on pound dollar. I think that's going to be super exciting. Should be a great little setup. I think there was a question on pound dollar. Benny was asking, pound dollar is a long promised trade in 4 hour. For several days it's been checking the 156.30 level as strong support. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So it's holding that level pretty nicely. So we have to kind of keep an eye on everything I just mentioned, because that's going to play out probably fairly quickly, and we need to be ready for that movement. So to say the least, just to kind of remind everybody, I'm looking to be long above 157.37 or short below 155.90, which is 100 pips away. If we can get a little bit of a better setup, I will short against this high, but we don't have that setup just yet. So that's what I'm looking for on pound dollar. Any more questions, comments? Let me know about that. Okay, so we also have some dollar Canadian action. Yeah, is audio coming through good for everyone? Are we having any audio problems for anybody? Is audio good so far? So far for everyone, good audio. Sometimes it's just a little bit of internet here and there. Okay. Good. All right. Audio's good. All right. Very good. Okay. So, let's move on to the dollar CAD for just a moment. Pound dollar and euro dollar should give us very nice setups in the next day or so. Dollar CAD could be a much longer term kind of situation. We have a possible. We have a possible big head and shoulders pattern going, and some interesting support right here as well. So weekly head and shoulders pattern on dollar CAD. If we go to this weekly chart, you can see we might end up with some of this activity right here. Big shoulder, nice huge dip, and then we could be going into a huge head right up here. That's going to be a while before we know, but in the process of that head and shoulders pattern possibly forming, we don't have any arrows on the indicator. So that means, by default we should be looking to stay with the trend, and the trend is up. And so I'm looking at this nice little trend line. A break of that could get us really cranking, really going. But ideally what I would actually like to see the most is this 111.90. This is a great little support level, 111.90. If we break this, we have a nice little run of 150 plus pips down to the 200 moving average, and down to starting into a bunch of missed pivot points. So I'm going to be, if we start to get a little bit of dollar weakness, which may or may not happen, I'm just going to wait for the break to happen. If it does, we're in it. If not, we're not. But 111.90 is a super good level to watch for the break, to sell the break. And if that does break, we're headed into 110 and possibly even below. I'd be looking for a 110 probably at the most. But it could continue on from there. So as you can see, we almost have 200 pips of movement below that 111.90 if that level breaks. Otherwise, we're going to watch this. Some double bottoms could happen. A couple of things could happen that could, kind of solidify this 111.90, 11200 area, and then give us that opportunity to trade that break on up. Because again, without any arrows on the indicator, that's telling us that we're probably going to see you know, some continuation of trend. And right now the trend is up. The Canadian dollar will definitely be affected with the OPEC announcement on this this coming Thursday, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But there's a lot of things to look at here, but I like this dollar CAD really either direction. Break of 111.90 or double bottom and possibly buying off that 11200 and trading it up through that trend line. So kind of looking at a couple of things there, but I think the dollar CAD is going to be pretty exciting. Okay, so what do we have here? A daily rising wedge on dollar Swiss franc. Yes, yeah, good point, Adrian. Oil and the Canadian dollar for sure. So we have the dollar Swiss franc daily rising wedge with a good selling opportunity coming. So this one might take a little bit of time, but you can see here's our daily chart. We have a nice daily arrow right here. We're at 63%. We have a little ways to go to get these maximum pips really cranking, but it's looking pretty good so far. It's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to be watching for on this dollar Swiss franc is a break of this rising wedge. Now it's going to take a long time for that to, it's not super far away, only about 80 plus pips. It could break that. But I'm going to look for some topping out patterns here as well. You can see that we have already kind of a little perfect double top. And so we're going to keep an eye on this, and if this can hold below this level, we may have opportunities to trade against this double top and trade this down to the trend line and hopefully through that trend line down into some of these many missed pivot points. So yeah, exactly, Adrian. Good point. Definitely good point. So this dollar Swiss franc looks really good for this whole entire setup right here. So we're going to keep an eye on this. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to see where it goes. And likewise, we're going to keep an eye on this little double top. It's kind of a choppy double top here, but that's right around about 97.30. So it's a little ways up there. It's a couple of pips up there, but watch for a break of that high, and this could easily be continuing to the upside. But if this double top holds, our safest bet would be to get in at the break of this trend line and trade this down to the daily 200 moving average and some of these missed pivots down here. So we're going to have some pretty good opportunities for that. I think euro dollar and pound dollar could happen very quickly. Dollar CAD's a little further out there, and dollar Swiss franc is a little further out there as well. So those ones will be happening eventually, but they might take a couple of days. Okay, so we're keeping our eyes on that. We have talked about the Aussie New Zealand many times, and we haven't taken a trade yet because it's just not ready yet. Adrian, I'll have more details, especially for group members coming out on what we're going to look for on the shorter time frames. So that'll be coming in the form of some pending orders and some daily updates and so on. So we'll definitely have more coming on that 1 hour in those smaller time frames. Absolutely. So Aussie New Zealand is looking very, very good. This is a great level, and I'm loving this thing to death. We are still stuck in this kind of channel that it's been in for some time now. We have this big kind of triple top up here and this big triple bottom down here, 109.25 and about 11300. And the Aussie New Zealand is just zigzagging back and forth, up and down, unable to really do much other than bounce around in the channel. I love this pair, and I love this setup for a couple of reasons. We've had some pretty big and bearish candles coming down here. This is a weekly chart, and it's been coming down with some pretty good fury. So I'm not ready to get long against the low of this range just yet. It's come down pretty hard, and even though we have a nice hammer on the weekly chart, which we do have a nice hammer on the weekly chart, which is a big sign. When we have weekly and monthly hammers, we don't ignore those. So that's a pretty good sign that we could see 109.25 area / 10900 hold, but I'm just not going to rush that one. I'm going to be looking more for some breakouts, more for a little bit of confirmation that this level is going to hold, and then we'll take it from there. But it's looking pretty good. If it does break, we could see a very nice movement below 109.25 down into the 10700s area. And even below, we could see a big bottoming out happen down in the 10600s. Yes, yeah, absolutely. We much prefer the 107. If this thing gets down to 107 anything, we're just going to put a trade on, and we're not going to have a stop loss, and we're just going to ride this thing. We're going to ride it out, and we're going to ride it back on up. But likewise, we're going to take a sell trade. If this breaks 10900 slash kind of 109.25, we're selling this thing at the break of 10900, and we're going to take it down at least 100 pips, if not more. And then we're just going to jump out of it in the 10700 area and just put a buy trade on and forget about it. And we're going to leave it for a year, and we're going to make 2,000 pips on it, give or take. So that is the plan for the moment with this Aussie New Zealand. Remember, we have huge things happening here. We have this big bottoming out that always happens around the 104, 10500 area, and just runs up like crazy and just goes for it. So I think this is going to be able to hold true pretty nicely, and getting above that 11300 is going to be pretty crucial. But we're going to get long against those lows, those big lows. But like I said, we're going to need a little bit of additional confirmation that this breakout that we've just seen right here is really going to hold. Now, it's pretty common to see a breakout like that come back and test those trend lines before continuing up. So this one might be ready. I'm going to have to just kind of test the wind and see where things are going. But I like the look of this, and we're already getting a pretty low probability 1 hour chart setup in the works, and so this might be ready. This might be ready sooner than later. So we're watching this Aussie New Zealand. This could have a trade coming up against that 10900 very quickly. So it's going to be a huge trade. It's going to be a massive long-term mover. Be ready. Okay, so we also have gold. There's a couple of patterns to consider on gold here. And one of those being a bit of a rising wedge right here. This is a 4 hour chart, and gold has got this rising wedge where it's just kind of bouncing up and up and up, and it seems to be holding those highs pretty well. If gold can make a break for it, then we've got a great mispivot down here at 1173 that would be a great target to push for in gold. But it's getting a little choppy, and we want to be a little bit careful. The other thing that gold could be forming here is a nice inverted head and shoulders pattern. Shoulder, head, break out of a falling wedge, and it's running up. Now, again, it's creating a rising wedge as it comes up, so that could be the reversal to continue this on down. But it's also working on a bit of an inverted head and shoulders pattern. So we have to keep an eye on this. There's a lot of factors that are going to play in on gold. Gold is a bit of a beast and can really move around a lot in a lot of different directions. So we'll keep an eye on the technical side of things, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But gold is looking very good. So keep an eye on this. I'll send out some updates to kind of to everybody this week. But in our trading group, we're going to talk a lot about gold and some of the setups we have there. So gold's looking good. Watch those price patterns. And then last but not least, we have some big New Zealand news coming up. So New Zealand's running right up here. It's hopping around, and we have this interesting little kind of consolidation. You can see that the New Zealand dollar for 2 solid months almost now, the latter part of September, all of October, and pretty much all of November, it's just been kind of up and down in a pretty tight range. It's not a very big range. Well, 300 pips, I guess. That's decent, but it's been in a pretty tight range for some time now. And it looks like it might not be ready. We have a 38% probability trade in the works on the daily chart. Nothing to get me too terribly excited just yet. The big Fibonacci setup we have here, it hasn't really been able to cross that 23% fib. It's all just kind of still cooking. So what I'm liking on this New Zealand dollar is I like this right here. We have a nice little trend line, and we have this kind of ugly head and shoulders pattern on the 4 hour chart. It's pretty small, and it's not my typical head and shoulders pattern that I like to see, but it's decent. And so this head and shoulders pattern on the 4 hour chart, our neckline is down here around 78.20 area. I'm going to get into this thing. If we break this low at about 78.40, I'm going to jump in short New Zealand dollar and trade this thing on down. I think we've got some pretty good possibility to at least grab 50 to 100 pips on a break of that low, and then a continuation from there. So So New Zealand dollar looks really good, and there could be a trade coming up fairly quickly with that one. So we just got to keep an eye on that whole scenario. So that's a trade coming up as well. Something to just touch on really quickly is yen pairs. Yen pairs are pretty overextended. Indicator is giving us a big thumbs up to get in on the next price pattern breakout for this level. The indicator, now remember, yen pairs, we've got to be very careful about trading against the trend on yen pairs. What the indicator tells us is that we've got some overbought like crazy yen pairs. So this means we need to take entries on price pattern breakouts, and we've seen a few of them, and they all break out far enough to lock in some profit. But just because they're not moving down for they're not moving down huge levels in hundreds of pips doesn't mean that it's not working. Doesn't mean that the trade setup is no good. But it means that yen pairs just have these endless trends, these crazy strong trends. And so the trend is up right now, but every time we get a price pattern break, trend lines, rising wedges, head and shoulders patterns, let's take them on these yen pairs and let's just get in on the breaks of those moves down and lock in profit ASAP. All the yen pairs are the same in that aspect, that they're starting to make dips, they're getting topped out a little bit, but we're probably not going to see huge moves down on these until the fundamentals change fairly substantially. Right now the yen is so weak, and it's probably going to continue to weaken against most of these pairs that we're watching. So take the price pattern break, but be very aggressive about locking in profit as soon as possible, because that will be very important to not lose money on yen pairs. So I'm keeping an eye on them, but they're just in this weird stage of you have to trade them very aggressively, and it's kind of tough in a group setting sometimes. And plus, I don't always love the yen pairs. So we'll keep an eye on them, but we've got some great setups on other pairs that we're watching, as you can see. All of these guys are going to be very high on the list all week long. Euro dollar, pound dollar, dollar CAD, and dollar Swiss franc are, could be a day or two or three out. Aussie New Zealand is very close. Gold is very close. New Zealand dollar is close. And of course, euro dollar and pound dollar. So we have some really super excellent setups. Again, for those that are visiting for the first time, I strongly recommend getting a free trial to the trading group and kind of seeing what we do and how we manage these positions. But I'm very much looking forward to this week. We've got some really good setups to trade, and I think we're going to have some nice pips going into a nice little holiday week. So that is the plan. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point, Adrian. And Mel, yeah, the notes will be up in just a moment with some coming pending orders. So yep, those will be posted in just a couple of moments. So thanks everyone. Questions, comments, I'm all ears. Send them on over, and I'd love to answer them. Let's get this recording up, and let's hear your questions.